Hey everyone, we're here with Richie Cavalera, Incite frontman and fucking madman. I'm sure you know him. If you don't, you got to check him out. This new album, holy fuck, Savage New Times. It's not coming out till August, so you got plenty of time to fucking enjoy it. But as a whole, dude, from start to end, it fucking is killer. Holy
Uh,
shit.
Hell yeah, dude. I appreciate that. It's like it's killer to hear like all the feedback starting to come out. We've been sitting on this for like a year as a band, so to have all that build up and then finally hearing everybody digging it, man, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's fucking, I'll tell you, I think you did really good with Dolores as a single because it's different and it's like it's fucking awesome.
Fucking A. Yeah, to us that was like all the singles had been laid out and for us it was like people know obviously we can do heavy jams and groove filled jams and this was kind of like us finally really like experimenting and finding our sound. I think it really started to evolve going back to the last album, Wake Up Dead. Bringing in a new guitarist and not just like a guy, like our guy that we've been searching for the last 13 years. We feel like we have him, to do the piano and 12-string guitar and all the things he did on Dolores and all the writing he did. It's a dope time to be in this band for sure.
Hell yeah, dude. Dolores really reminds me of something that comes out from King Diamond. I fucking love King Diamond, dude. So it's like it's so epic and I'm like, holy fuck, man. Like
Uh, I
like
think it
what
turned out good.
I do
You
too. I
know,
think I think it's a great way for the band as a whole to really like showcase like, dude, look at what we can do. What else we can do, I should say, you know?
yeah, man, it's rad. After like this being our seventh album, to like still feel like we're, you know, on and like just now creating our best stuff and really enjoying being in a band again. Like I think you go through periods where different dudes can create different issues and maybe kill the fun out of being in a band. So I think once we like came out of Built to Destroy's record cycle, it was just kind of like we need to change something. We need to do something to make this better, for the guys that, Lennon, me and L who've been together for so long now. And yeah, Dolores was just like that next envelope where we want to take this band. Lennon, the drummer being such a vital part of the writing now is like totally changed. Um, took us away from that like style we were being forced into, and now this is like what we had always envisioned the band to be. And it's crazy how much whoever's in charge of writing determines that. Really, it's such a mind game trying to figure out how to make it right and what works best.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, so I think I came onto the Insight team around like 2015 with the Slaughter. I was like, okay, I can fucking get this, right? So I've kind of followed you and to like watch the band evolve into what it is honestly fucking awesome.
That's awesome to hear, man. Yeah, that's like what we're hearing, from the feedback. Like, we've been lucky to not be that band that like came out with our first album, second album being like the best of our work and then like forever chasing that. I think we've always had the freedom to just feel like we can make whatever we want, write what we want. And, to us, that's always like what music was about. Like, obviously you have some mindset of like thinking about like the metalheads out there and what they want and etc. But at the end of the day, you got to like be happy with what you're doing. If we're gonna be gone away from families and do all the things that you have to do to be in a band, like we want to play the shit that makes us fired up, and it's cool to feel so different, in a this day and age to like really be producing something that feels fresh and organic.
Oh yeah, after fucking 20 years of being a band, I think a lot of bands would be like, man, it's really hard to find something, fresh and new. And sometimes that's some new blood with, with Lane coming in. It feels like he's really, brought a different perspective to the band, or like a fresh perspective to really help like bring some of that creativity out, which is fucking cool as shit.
Yeah, man. I think, yeah, again, it goes to, removing that last guitar player. Like, we didn't know Lennon could write, riffs and all this stuff. And then Lane also doing it. So it was like, we used to like wait for the guitar player to write this stuff, and then we'd get to hear it and really wouldn't have a lot of say in it. It was like, he would work it to where time would just be enough to where, we couldn't change shit. So now it's like we sent Lane and Lennon to Texas for a few weeks and, just shut them in a room and let them just create this. And that was such a different experience for us as a band to do it that way. And I think the results are showing. It's like, us finally just feeling and sounding like we have always wanted to. It's 13 years now with me, Lennon, and Elle. So it's exciting, man.
Yeah, that's, that it's wild to think, like all those fucking years, and you're like, man, we're finally getting there. How fucking great is that? You know?
It's it's great. It was scary too, though. I think when we went in the studio for this recording, we weren't sure if this would be like forcibly our last album. Like we just didn't know what to expect. A lot of things were up in the air. We've been with such a small label for such a long time, and it was just kind of like always like going in a circle and never really like breaking out from that. And I think bringing on the new management team with FM Music, and having Reigning Phoenix as the label now, with the experience they have with dudes that like built Nuclear Blast, and the roster they have with Meshuggah and Opeth and Kerry King and all these great bands. So it's exciting for us to just see this whole other aspect of the things we were always wanting as a band but never could grab. So it's all just falling into place now, man, and it's dope, and I can't wait to just hit the stage. That's like where we're really dying.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited. I can't wait for you guys to be on the fucking road. I want to see some of this new material live. Like, I want to see you guys pull Dolores off. Like, holy fuck, I think that would be like, oh,
Oh, we're gonna that I think is something we have to play. And I think just this new album, I mean, we're doing 5 singles off of this record before it's actually out. And I
Wow.
think all 10, in my opinion, could have been used. So live we're definitely gonna rip these out. I think for Summer Slaughter, we're doing half the set is gonna be the Wake Up Dead, and the other half is gonna be the new material. So um we're gonna shove it down everybody's throats, man. That's for damn sure.
Fuck yeah, dude. Well, it's cool. It's cool that you guys have, such a killer team like behind you. I know, Reigning Phoenix obviously does such a tremendous job with the artists that they bring on, and I think it speaks highly to how they think of you, right? Like, because they don't bring on bullshit. They bring on people that they wholeheartedly believe in, which is, I think it's uh maybe more common now, but back 80s, 90s, it was really hard pressed to get that like full support for smaller bands. They were like, "Oh, we can make like a couple $100 off them, so jam them in a studio, get them out there, we're good."
Yeah, I mean it's a big leap of faith on their part. We're not a new band. It's more difficult to break us out than it is a brand new band that just started. I think that's kind of where the entire I look at it like an Incite 2.0 happening. Like the fresh logo, the new team behind us, and all that is really what it takes to really, take those next levels in this industry. I mean, if your label and your management and your agent aren't like fully on the same page, it just it kills the band, man. It kills your motivation. It kills your momentum. And we going back to like last year when we had finished recording this, Reigning Phoenix wasn't really quite in the picture yet. It was still a lot of not sure, and the previous management wasn't too involved as to where we would want to. So last summer we just were like, you know, Reigning Phoenix came on, and then it was like time, let's go find new management. Let's put all this right. And now that yes, the team is correct and right, and everybody like supporting it, like the label coming up and being like, "Yo, we love this record. We are gonna pump the shit out of this." And that was just like, whoa, we had never had that. So to be 20 years in and getting that is just, man, it's like, what the hell, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool. And like so Curtis and C Squared doing the PR for you guys and the album, like they do such a great fucking job. They're awesome people. I think uh I guess let me say first, good on you for saying, you guys as a band for saying, hold on, we need to change some shit up and get it and actually like do it because
Yeah, man.
so many people are afraid of that. Like, I don't want to change management because they've been with us for whatever. But if they're not believing in you, if they're not on board with you, like that piece isn't fitting.
A thousand, man. Like that's how I've, having the lucky aspect I've had of being in the business, for so long, the really deep aspects of it from, parents that are fully entrenched in this also. It's like when you see those things happen, you don't want to believe them, but like you said, you have to act on them, because it's like being in a band, this is like one shot. You don't have many chances to like redo yourself, or go a different direction. It's pretty, there's a million bands out there, and they don't need to waste their time doing this. So this all just falling into place is pretty pretty extraordinary. I mean, I think each member of this band has had a time period where it was like something should have um, removed them from music, like whether it was like going through a hard time with the family, or work related, or whatever it was. So the fact that we're all still here makes us even believe 10,000 times more than we ever have about what this music and what this is capable of doing for the metalheads and the metal scene.
Yeah, it's cool. I think it's really cool to see a band, especially to see a band that is, six, seven, eight, 10 albums deep to come out with something that is honestly so fucking fresh and solid. I think there comes a time we look at I'll say Metallica, right, for lack of a better band, right? But
Yeah.
they had a thing where their albums went it's like, oh man, fuck.
Yeah, yeah, completely. I've always said too, like I've always felt like our records are always great. Like if you had attached a Metallica to our album, or a Slipknot to our album, they would be platinum records. They would be massive hits. So again, it just comes back to like getting it out there, getting the right message behind what your band is. And I think that's all finally catching on, and again, allowing us to just focus on playing more, and not you know worrying about every aspect of every detail of the band, because ultimately when we start this shit, we don't even know half of that stuff that you have to do. You're like businessman most of the time rather than actual musicians. So it's
Yeah, you're
fun to
like,
like
fuck.
fall back into that, like what we wanted to do.
Yeah, so many people don't, they don't realize that. They're like, dude, I'm just gonna play music. I'm gonna fucking be a big rock star or whatever. And it's like, oh, hold on, I've got like 10 hours a week where I can play music, and like 60 where I'm like, no, this has got to be like this and fucking whatever.
You're a merch guy, you're a driver, you're a roadie, you're a map reader, like you become a booking hotel fucking travel agent. It's a lot of faces, and I think that's been the cool experience, is like kind of like weeding out those dudes that weren't dedicated, those dudes that weren't like humble for what was going on, and like us being very lucky to like really get on tour um early when we started the band. I think we did maybe like 6 months of local shows, then it was like, yo, we're on tour, dude. Let's figure this out, and try to survive and try to make it from show to show. And then you like you start to learn all those other aspects that go into it, and it's definitely a lot, man. But you know uh you still get to play music, so that ends up,
Oh yeah.
leveling everything else out.
Fuck yeah. I mean, that's the icing on the cake. It's like, oh, dude, we played music and we got gas to get to the next city. Let's fucking do this, you know?
That's totally the way it is, man. Like it's ground level stuff, and that's what keeps it fun too. It's not so much pressure to like succeed to these like huge albums we've already had, or not, nothing like that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this album is going to be the biggest album for you guys thus far. Like, um, team, the fucking music is it's fresh. It for the listener, I think it's super, super rewarding. Um,
Yes.
And something like going back and listening to the discography, something that I really like about you, about Incite is that, and I don't know if you recognize it, but I'm pretty confident that you do, is like there's a nod to those fucking bands throughout history, like somewhere in there, whether it just
Oh
be a
yeah.
little riff or a vocal pattern, is like, man, it's so cool
Oh
to
yeah.
be able to like pick up on that shit, you know?
Oh yeah, man. We've had so many different influences on this band over the years. I think, starting out, we were really in depth with, Kill Switch and Poison the Well and Despised Icon and Black Dahlia and all that stuff that was really taking shape in, the 2008, 2007 era, and that was hugely influential on us starting out, and I think, as time went on, we were able to find more influences. I think me, Lennon, and L have such a wide variety of music taste, from, old rock to hip hop to 80s thrash metal, and, obviously all the legends, the Slayers, Metallicas, and all those bands that like really pushed us in the direction that we, were always like striving for, and I think this plays homage to, you know, Judas Priest and, like you said, a little bit of that Abigail feel on Dolores. I think we're a band that isn't afraid to really test things, and, we don't have that pressure like, oh, if this fails, you're done. We just can create the music, and hopefully the listener, the metalheads, get to like vibe with that back with us.
Yeah, but I think, I think for you guys not setting that expectation too, like if this one doesn't do this, like we're fucking done. Like that's I think for a band, for any band, that's like an unrealistic thing because you don't fucking know. And what are you
Yeah.
doing? Are you creating music to create music or are you creating music to create dollars?
Yep. Exactly. That's I think what, determines what a band becomes. I think, if you can keep the organization going and not have that become your motivation, and music still be what you're motivated by, and that's what'll, create this kind of situation that we are in. We're none of us are well off by any means. We all struggle with day jobs and all the real things of life, but at the end of the day, this is like, again, something that we haven't given up on. So we're just excited to still be doing this, man, and like even more fired up with the new album.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm really excited to see what everyone else thinks of the new album. I think it's gonna fucking I think there are gonna be a lot of people who are like, holy shit, like you're gonna get a lot of new listeners with it. Oh shit, I can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I think that's like the cool thing about where this is going is like having this opportunity to gain so many new listeners. We've never been big. We've never broken out. We've always had this really kind of just underground, independent, maintained level, and this is the first time where it's like, wait a minute, dude, something different's going on. Like look at all the interview requests coming in, look at all the cool tour offers we're getting, and yeah, it's fucking a trip, man. But I feel like I'm at a better place to accept it now than I like me at like 19, 22 in those early days. I would have pissed this away. I would have just been a fucking wasted mess in the corner, just being as wild as I could. But at this point, it's like, um, I'm grown up, I'm mature, and I'm humbled by all the experiences I've had. So I think it's a perfect time for the band to, make this jump to the next level because we're ready for it.
Hell yeah. Fuck yeah, dude. That's really awesome to hear that you like recognize, when you were younger that you probably would have pissed it away. Like how many people would have been like, "Oh, this should have happened years ago." But I know I was drinking a case a day and a fucking fifth of Jack, but whatever.
Yeah, I think that's the cool thing about life. Sometimes it'll take you through those shitty valleys and those turns and whatnot, and yeah, I'm really thankful it didn't happen earlier because yeah, this is like where my life is peaceful. It can absorb what this could bring, at this point. So it's fucking cool. I'm stoked.
Hell, hell yeah, dude. Absorb and appreciate it, which I think,
Yeah.
is the important thing that I'm seeing right now is like you're like, oh shit, like this is cool. It's really cool to see fucking everyone like jumping on board, like, dude, let's do this now.
It is, man. You question if that's going to be the case ever. You kind of get comfortable to where you're like, all right, I'm not expecting this. I know we are creating great things, but I'm not expecting it. And when it does happen, yeah, you're broadsided. And just it's so much more exciting. Like hitting up the guys. It's like, dudes, like this is happening. Oh, dude, look, Revolver just gave us like top new song of the week. etc. Like it really just like pumps you up. And like our forte obviously has always been the live shows, so it's like if people are getting stoked on the record and we haven't even played live yet, like that's dope because we know when we go out there, especially like Summer Slaughter being the first band, we're we're driven to be one of the best first bands that's ever done that tour. And I definitely recommend people not missing that show, man, because we're gonna lay some work down.
Dude, I preach to everyone. Like I know most people are like, oh, I just want to see the headliner or I just want to see this band and that's it. I'm like, dude, go to the show early because you never know when that opener is gonna kick your fucking ass.
Yeah, dude,
Like
that's true.
that's fucking I just wish more people would go earlier because the openers, I think the openers deserve just as much time to listen to than the fucking headliner. Obviously, the headliner's done it for longer, but dude, the opener isn't, well, normally it's when you're on a touring package, you didn't get there by accident. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think with this, we've been patient. We didn't jump in and be like, hey, look who he is. We deserve every tour. We really just took the shit that we could get. I mean, from touring with like Il Nino, touring with like Gorgoroth, 6 Feet Under, 36 Crazy Fists. I mean, Cancer Bats. Like we literally were like did not care what the tour was. We just wanted to play, and that we felt was the only way to really get our name out there. So now to like getting tours that we are like really going to be great on with the package that's been built around us, and with Summer Slaughter, I think they've always had a kind of a thing where the metalheads do show up early because there are so many killer bands from the word go to the headliner and everything in between is stacked. So I think that's going to be a killer thing. And we have another rad tour in like a September, October, which I believe I can say this. If not, they can just yell at me. But like 30 or 6 Feet Under, which for us is killer because Chris is a huge like friend of the band. He's been on our track. Yes,
Yeah.
he sang with us on a track and took us to Europe 2 times. So for us to do that in America is going to be an absolute mind blow.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you, like I caught them a few times on this fucking tour with Nile, and
Fuck yeah.
like Chris sounded so fucking good.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Like,
hearing, man. His voice is really coming back. I think having that break maybe during COVID, got that strength and rejuvenated feel for him also.
yeah. Well, so I chatted with him after opening night. They played Nashville. So I caught him out by the bus and we chatted for a minute. Like, dude, you sound good. He's like, man, you guys really enjoyed it. Like, fuck yeah, we did. Like, that's literally we came for 6 feet under, like, and you guys were great. And he's like, awesome. Like, I've been sober like 2 years and I've really been working on my fucking vocals. And I'm like, dude, That is so fucking awesome because that was, like I've been a Cannibal Corpse fan since fucking Tomb of the Mutilated, so it's like fuck yeah, dude.
It's cool, man. That's again, that's like that exciting thing about music, man. It's like different times in your career can like refire you up. And even for them to be doing, multiple US tours, which I think had been like 15 years since they played over here, and
Yeah.
we understood it like doing those Europe tours, like how, it's so much more like taken care of for you. There's food at the venue, there's showers, there's places you can sleep. It's very more accommodating to the band and the musicians. So I understand why he did that. But now, giving it a try and coming back over and giving the fans out in America, an opportunity to see them is great because having Jack back with him and Marco on the drums, it's a killer lineup that he has.
Oh
One of the
yeah.
solid bands too around him. So it's dope, man. I can't wait for them to announce that and get to see the cities that we're gonna hit on that with them guys too.
Yeah, that's gonna be fucking cool. So they did already announce is it Heaven and Hell at Black Circle in Indianapolis, I think.
Yeah, and a couple other, I think Aftershock or something like that they're on. So I think the tour is going to pretty much revolve around their festival stops, which is cool. And I'm looking forward to us finally getting to break through into those festivals next year too, man.
Yeah, that'll be super cool. So my hope is that you guys are in a spot that I can actually go to a fucking show because I'm like fuck, dude. Now I gotta go see Incite and 6 Feet Under together, motherfucker. Like
That tour looks like it's going to be pretty extensive. So I would think, obviously Summer Slaughter is just kind of like a little bit of a feeler for them to kind of get the legs under that tour again. So
yeah.
we're going to do the big run with 6 Feet in September, October. So definitely we'll be close, I'm sure of that.
Yeah, I think so too. And if not, I'll just have to make a fucking trip somewhere. My my buddy Jeff is Jeff Golden is doing touring bass for 6 Feet Under.
Yeah, no, he's an old school homie. I
Yeah.
actually met him, gosh, man, it must have been like 2010 or 11. He came out to like do a fill-in couple shows for Soulfly when we were on tour with them and Straight Line Stitch, I think the other band was, if I remember correctly. And yeah, he's a good dude, man. Always hitting the pavement trying to get his music rolling too. And that's good to see him jamming with such a good band now.
Yeah, he's always super nice. Yeah, I think I met him back in his Crowbar days and it was like, we've kind of chit-chatted for a lot of years and he fucking did this tour and I'm like, dude, we're fucking hanging out and he's like, all right, cool. So, like I went and fucking hung out a couple of times. So I'm excited for him to get the opportunity to go out with SFU again and to have you guys on this fucking tour in September, October. Like that's a for all you motherfuckers out there, don't miss this tour. Like, just fucking don't. This is going to be
Yeah,
mind blowing.
I'm hoping it's announced. I would imagine like in the coming weeks for sure. With it getting so close to the tour dates and whatnot. So yeah, I'm stoked. Be on the lookout for that. And obviously Summer Slaughter, and we're even gonna drop two more singles before this record even comes out. So some cool
Hell
stuff.
yeah. Hell yeah. So let's deep dive into the album for a minute.
Cool.
What's your favorite song on the album?
Man, right now I got two of them, and they're kind of ones that aren't gonna be singles, but I love Doubts and the Fear. To me, that's like lyrically, the story that's written in that song is like something I believe that every person deals with. Like the overcoming of your own mind's doubt. Always like telling on the inside, but you can do it. And that song really hit hard for me because that's a battle I always go through, like, is this good enough? Is this the right way, etc. So not to mention the incredible breakdown bridge that Lane came up with, that guitar, and it's something so different again where you're surprised that it comes into the song. And one of my other really favorite ones is Chucked Off. That song is just like, like just a fuck you to whiny ass people, always bitching like, things aren't good enough, always playing the victim. We've had a lot of people around us, through our camps and things like that, that it's just like, the fuck he's so chucked off for. And that song's like, to me, has some of the best vocal performances that I've ever done to this point. So that's the cool thing, is there's so much exciting stuff for people to dive into post singles.
Yeah.
It's a record from beginning to end that just rules.
Dude, that fucking solo and chucked off is like, holy fuck.
I dug it, man. And I think a lot of the wordplay that people will catch, and it also has a incredible feel. And the bass in that is so thick, and it's really a banging song.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll tell you something that I notice on almost all of the albums. It starts off so fucking heavy, like Lies, dude. What a killer way to like fucking really open the album. But if we look back at The Slaughter and what's the 2014 album,
Uh, Oppression or Up in Hell?
Up in Hell,
Yeah, yeah,
like that they start off a little slower. Not that they're bad by any means, but they start off a little different than everything else that Insight does. And I like that you guys tried that, at that time.
yeah.
But I really like, Savage New Times. I think when people hear that fucking opening riff, they're gonna be like, okay, is this what we're in for? And you're just gonna fucking pummel them the whole time, dude.
I think that was something we really started to add, with the Wake Up Dead record. I think that starts no intro, it's just the 4 count on snare right into the blasting of that song. And same with Lies, no intro, just literally you put the CD in and you're already just getting pummeled. And that's probably one of the things that I have stolen from my old man, is that opening track being so massive.
Yeah.
I looked back through like what he had done, and it was like every record they put out was always, that first song was like such a massive face smashing track, and I think that was something, yes, we've tried to have, going forward with our records, and really setting the tone, and then not letting up by going into, feel this shit, get fired up, as the second song on the album. So that like, I think just keeps that pace ripping and rolling. And then, Just a Rat kind of, sets a more of a groove, suicidal feel to the record. And yeah, I think the flow was really good that, Lennon kind of came up with, creating the song order and the vibe that you feel on this record. And,
Dude,
it
he
blasts.
fucking he absolutely crushed it. And like the coolest thing, I don't know if you've done this, but I've done this a couple of times. Listen to the whole fucking album, and when Savage New Times stops, it goes right back into Lies, and like dude, it flows so smooth, like the whole
Yeah.
fucking way. Like, holy fuck.
Even like for the people that are going to own it on vinyl, the first half, it ends, and then the second half starts with the Dolores. I think that's just such a cool shake up in the middle of this record. It's yeah, it became a record that I think you're gonna listen to over and over and over and over and over again. There's so much going on, and then you put on the headphones and you experience so much more detail in this record. And obviously that's a praise to Steve Ebbets and Arthur Rist coming in and putting the final touches and mastering and such. So it's such a layered record. And I think all of ours in the past had kind of missed that, that added flavor where your ears are being tricked, and you're like, oh, what was that? And this really gave us that time and the effort to really focus on, that added stuff to a record that really makes it a complete, album, rather than like kind of almost there.
Yeah, I don't know. I like, I think every album that you guys have done has always been a complete album. And of course I think,
Thank you.
this again, right, is like the next level for you guys. And it's just as a fan, I can't say how fucking excited I am for everyone to hear it because I really, really think that everyone's gonna go, holy fuck, why have I not like been a part of this for the whole time, you
Yeah.
know?
I agree, man. Like I'm excited to that point to where like people will find this album and then have, 6 records of music to dive through, man, and really like be like, holy shit, like this, and I think that's how it goes for a lot of metal bands. You don't really start getting your traction and your notoriety until you put in the work of, multiple albums and years. So it's cool, man. I'm really hyped hearing you say all this stuff for real.
Yeah, I am too. Well, I'm hyped fucking listening to it. Like when Curtis sent it to me, I was like, okay, I gotta fucking hear this. Like new insight. I gotta fucking listen. I listen and I'm like, holy fuck, dude.
It's exciting, man. It's a killer record, and I think even like the more obscure tracks, like later, I think the first half is such a cool vibe to lead into the second half of the record because yeah, you have like Dolores, and then Used and Abused is a very crazy orchestrated song, with like the total black speed metal start to the, pummeling kind of like down tuned metal feel that it goes into. And then, you have Never Die Once, which is kind of like almost old school prong feel, like totally felt like I was like harnessing like Tommy Victor and
Tommy
doing
Pro. Yeah.
dude, like totally. Like when I heard, I was like, oh my god, it sounds like Tommy in '94, and then you're ending on a song like Savage New Times. That's like totally just like Judas Priest and all these different aspects that come into that track, and yeah, it's just a huge record of influence for us.
Yeah, it's really fucking cool. And I'm gonna tell you, so I'm real big on like passing the music on to the younger generations. Like I want them to fucking go out and experience. And I'm saying this because you'd mentioned your dad a couple of times. Like
Yeah,
my daughter's first like metal show was Max Negor doing the fucking Return to Roots, dude.
nice.
I was like, we're going. She's like, okay. She's fucking there headbanging the whole fucking time. I'm like, God, I fucking love this.
I
Yes.
love that, man. Like that to me is like what I remember of my childhood, like my dad, my mom, they didn't take me fishing, they didn't play baseball with me in the front yard. My pops showed me metal and took me to concerts and really threw me on stage, like that was us fishing or throwing the football, so I
Yeah.
love hearing what metal is about, the family that it is. Like I sell merch, for a lot of bands, so I see how many fathers bring their daughters or their young sons, and just really building the future for metal. And I don't think any other music genre out there does that, in such a deep, parent sibling type of vibe, man. And that's something that really attracts me to the metal scene and the metal way of life.
Fuck me too, dude. Like I I love live shows because you go in there and nothing on the outside fucking matters. And if there's a little girl there, the whole place like protects that little girl.
Yeah,
Like what the fuck are you guys doing? Hold on, let her go. Let her do her thing.
it's a beautiful thing, like what metalheads are. It's like we have this perception of being the scary pissed off people, but it's like we're the most calm chill people because we use this music as that outlet.
Yeah.
It whether you're singing some cool ass riff or driving fast in the car, or yeah, in the mosh pit. It's looking around, seeing people from every background, every belief system, putting all that at the door and just coming in and like being a human being, and having something that we all relate to. And, I think music's a great thing that can bring, humanity together in a more positive way, to see that we still do agree on shit, as far as like life and what is important to us. And, music's a general universal language of that.
It's the great connector, dude. I think
Okay.
we miss out on so much because we're so focused on like political bullshit or religious bullshit and Like, I don't give a fuck if you want to be conservative or Democrat or whatever, like, but don't tell me I have to be something.
Yep.
Let me be. I'm gonna let you fucking be. You
Like
know, I don't give a fuck what your religious preference is. If you're an asshole, you're an asshole. And if you're not, cool.
it's true. And that's again, that's a metalhead thing. Like, I think that's what my determining force, to prove who I was to show people that, hey, man, I'm just a real dude, a humble dude, enjoying a situation I was just thrown into. I didn't plan for this life. I didn't pick where I was coming from or born. I just knew that like when I was born, my mother inundated us with metal. It was everywhere from nuclear assault sleeping on our couches to, the guitar player of Sacred Reich living in our guest room or, growing up in a metal bar, where you'd have like Flotsam and Jetsam beginning or Atrophy or, so many of these beginning stages of it, so it just became like a complete way of life for me personally. And then seeing all the kind of cool people that were a part of it just was like, man, I want this, like this
Yeah,
is life I want to do. That's why I've sold merchandise for other bands for 15 years now, just because I live, breathe, die for the metal community, the scene, and just getting it to a, a future comfortable place. I think all the young bands right now are just setting it up for a great future. And you see the old guard bands finally like cracking their shell and helping younger bands finally, and not being so just scared of holding their power. And it's just it's a great time for our scene and for heavy music.
I agree. I think it's a fantastic time. Like I went to Full of Hell and Harm's Way last night,
Hell yeah.
and this Japanese band that I was not familiar with played called Cruelty. Holy fuck, dude. They absolutely blew my mind. Like,
Really?
oh yeah, dude, they were heavy as
See,
fuck. Yeah,
wow, check it out, man.
Kuelty.
I love finding new music, man. That's a big thing for me, is checking that out. So I'll definitely check that out. Where are they from?
Japan.
Oh, really? See, that's cool, man. I've been seeing a lot of new scenes popping up, man. Like India's been killer, pumping out some killer bands, and it's exciting to see this happening. A lot of places that have outlawed it or wasn't given the chance to even survive, like is finally coming forward and getting their chance. And damn, it reminds me like South America in the 80s, just kind of
Oh
finding
yeah.
Sepultura, Crisian, all these killer bands that came from that era.
Yeah, that was oh man. God, I'm gonna tell you, I missed that fucking early era Sepultura too. Jesus Christ.
That was killer, man. Like, and that's something I love that I got to see. I think that was like my school of rock training. I watched Pantera in their prime, and Prong in their prime, and Helmet and Ministry, and all these killer tours that Sepultura was a part of. I was always trying to be involved, like Biohazard and Fear Factory, and even all those bands that came about from that era. And it was a special time. And I don't think we've seen metal really do that until like in the recent years, having the huge death metal scene and the grindcore scene and all these other genres that are popping up in the metal era. Man, it's dope.
Dude, yeah, and it's like fresh. God, it's fucking fresh. So the last time I saw Sepultura, like original Sepultura, was Biohazard, Danzig, and Ozzy.
Oh, that was fun, man. I got to see that too up in Penn State University, man. It was what a tour. What a tour.
Yeah. Well, that was a fucking killer bill. I was just like, holy fuck,
Yeah,
dude.
it's great to see Biohazard ripping it up again, man. That was like a band I wasn't sure that would ever fully, come back together, but to see Evan and Billy put that thing back and totally just rolling hard and kicking ass too, man, is a great thing.
Oh yeah, dude. Like their fucking fan base is like right back at it. Like, hell yeah. I'm like, that's
Selling out shows, and it's fucking
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool. It's really super cool to see all these bands like Acid Bath coming back and playing some fucking shows and Chimera, last couple of years playing some shows and it's like, all right, like I could do some more fucking bands getting back together and playing some killer shows.
Yeah, man. I think it's the terrain that's out there now. Everybody's really open to it again. And, I'm not a huge fan, but I mean, even like, Sleep Token just hitting number 1 on the Billboard 200, it's not your everyday, balls to the wall heavy, but what that reminds me of is like kind of like early Corn when they blew up. It really introduced a lot of people that wouldn't have checked out metal, as we call them a gateway band. Like
Yeah.
you get into that and then it's like, okay, this isn't heavy enough. Next, you're going to jump to like, Deftones, and then you're going to get to like, Morbid Angel and, so on and so forth. So the scene is very, very alive right now, man.
Yeah, and it's, I think it's really awesome to see like these heavy bands like Knocked Loose, you know, playing on Kimmel and everyone being like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like breaking those glass ceilings that, have historically been there. It's really opened a lot of people up to I mean,
And
I saw people at the fucking Full of Hell show last night and I was like, I'm not judging, but 10 years ago you wouldn't have been at this show.
yeah, and that's what's crazy. Like these bands have been around a long time grinding, and people are just like, oh, how'd they get big? And it's like, well, because they've been putting in the work, man. And that's what it takes. Like Full Hell, I first saw them on, the Cavalera Roots tour with Immolation and then Full of Hell. And I was just fucking floored. I had never seen that, like what they were doing at that time. And, it's transpired into them being a headlining act and doing killer
Yeah.
stuff. So it's a grind, but if these bands that keep with it, man, they ultimately do find that next level. Like, yeah, Knock Loose and those, 200 Stab Wounds, another one that I love. And,
Oh
coming out
yeah.
of Florida right now, Body Box. And, it's some cool shit, cool young dudes that are like putting metal on the map.
Yeah, it's super cool to see. It's refreshing to see. Like I'm pushing 50 and I'm enjoying seeing like I go to a show and I'm the fucking old guy leaning against the wall going, I don't want to break my hip, but man, these guys are awesome.
That's a trip too, man. Because yeah, I'm gonna be 40 this year. So for me, even like coming on tour, like when I was always the young guy, now it's like, I'm the old dude. Like, it's like it's a trip to see. But I'm stoked because the bands like Hatebreed and Soulfly, Machine Head, they're reaching their point where they're gonna need more time off, and it's time for us to step in and Full of Hells and all those type of dudes. And there's no shortage of kick-ass shit to take the place.
That is the fucking truth. God, and I love it. I'm here for it all. Like
Me too, man. It's
what
exciting. It's exciting.
so so tell me like what was I guess the craziest show that you remember, and I say craziest show, but like band that you saw that you didn't expect to blow you away that absolutely blew you away.
Oh, that's a good one. I would go with 200 Stab Wounds. I think that was like the first tour I had sold merch for since COVID. Kind of was like easing up. And these dudes were like brand new. Young, and they just, man, when you hear a band live that just has that much power, and you're just like, how, what am I missing here? What are they doing? Like, what is happening? And it's just like a natural thing that's coming through their hunger and their fired upness. And I was really blown away by that concert. And I kind of go back to also the last show I saw before the lockdowns happened, and that was Heaven and Hell in Mexico City. It was like Down and Ginger and Static X and Fear Factor, all this cool shit. And I think everybody kind of knew it was like could be the last show ever, on Earth.
Yeah.
So I think everybody really went into it with this different kind of mindset, and the crowd had such an insane mosh pit and reaction for every band. And that's one that'll always stick with me for life.
That's really cool. You said Static X. I'm stoked that they're out doing stuff and they don't have like an actual face as their front man. I think that's really fucking cool to see.
Yeah, I think the way Tony Campos put that together and did it as a tribute, but also as a band that he helped start. So I see the vision that he had, and he's always been an incredible, just persona in music. So to see someone like Dope get that chance too, who's been a champion of music for a long time, is real cool. And I was blown away, man, seeing that live. I was really impressed how solid it was, how it didn't step on Wayne's memory, and I
Right.
think Tony could have did that with the way they ended. And I think he really did it humbly and as a professional as could be, man. And check it out. I
Dude,
think going out with Mudvayne next, right?
I think so. They
Yeah.
like I caught that show at Mercury Ballroom. I live in Louisville, so they were at Mercury Ballroom here, and same thing. I felt it was just super respectful. There was no bullshit. Like it was like we're not. I'm not here to shit on anyone. We're here to fucking play music, the music that we created. Like let's do it. And the crowd, dude, to see the crowd's reaction was like everyone was just like, oh man, this is like the best thing ever, you know?
Yeah, because put the bullshit aside that happened to them as Wayne's career progressed and the things that happened with him in the band, like where they were able to bring it back to and totally give it that good name for the future, and kind of like killed everybody's memory of the bad times of what happened, and
Yeah.
just brought everybody together for a celebration. And I love seeing bands do that. I think that's a cool thing my dad and uncle are doing, and so many other bands, right now, kind of bringing that cool feel to classical stuff that, hasn't been seen in a long time.
Yeah. It's important. I know the big conversation I've had recently is a lot of like Pantera, but it's not really Pantera. Like I get it, right? And I understand like, a lot of the old heads are like, oh, I won't go see it because it doesn't have the brothers. Like I get it. But at the same time, like to have for the younger generation to have the opportunity to experience at least its current form live, you know, your dad and uncle, dude, fucking to be able to share that return to roots with my daughter was fucking awesome.
Yeah. I was kind of up in the air at first with the Pantera thing, but then, I understood it, uh, Phil and Rex, they are, you know, original from what we have the perception of Pantera being, and I think they've done it pretty classy and honoring the brothers, and I think it's something, yeah, like you said, it's great for people to get to see in some way, shape, or form. And obviously all of us that saw the original stuff, will have those memories too forever, and get to hopefully enjoy seeing Phil out there actually putting on a hell of a show. I think of like the last Pantera tour I remember seeing, and him just falling apart and hit
Obliterated, yeah.
notes, and you were basically there just watching the brothers at that point, so to see him really have that comeback, hopefully fix the mistakes he's made, and everybody deserves another chance, and they've done a good job with it. I hope they don't make no new music though, but I'll be okay if they stay away from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely with you. If it's new music, it's not Pantera. Or-
That changes it too much for me, and
yeah.
I think it's cool. I still am dying to see it. I do want to see it.
Have you not seen it yet?
No, man, I've been missing it every time it's been near me. I'm gone, or I had just hasn't lined up right yet. I plan on just opening for him in the next year or two. That's my plan to see it.
Let's just make a call. Hey, Phil.
Yeah, I wish, man. I wish that was my life, but no, we gotta submit and pray and beg and hope to, something happens.
Yeah, well, like I know what they're doing this summer. They've got some cool bands. They've got some cool bands opening the shows, like Shock Narcotics doing a couple of dates. Snafu is doing 357, something like that. I fucking love both those bands. And they got King Parrot coming over from Australia.
Yeah, I
Uh,
love those dudes, man. That's
yeah,
and they even have they throwing my boy Flesh Hoarder on a couple shows, and they're
yeah.
a small local Texas band,
Dude,
so
but I
yeah,
love Flesh Hoarder. Like they're great. And I talked with Mike and Nick, and I was like, hey man, like tell me about the fucking they opened a couple of shows the last tour, and they're like, oh dude, it was so fucking wild, like 17,000 people or whatever. And like, oh, I could only imagine like out there playing your fucking Texas death metal.
yeah, it's just it's great to see, them at least, helping other bands out. And I think that's been something cool. The Pantera name since day one was doing that. They
Yeah.
took a lot of bands out that weren't given chances, and they really championed heavy metal.
Yeah, that's an important thing. Those it's those uber successful ones going, "Hey, listen, there's some other fucking music out here that you guys got to check out. Go fucking check it out."
Completely agree, man. And again, it's good to see that coming back into music, not
Yep.
like bands touring for 5 years by themselves, like not helping anybody out except themselves,
We
So,
have a 4 hour set. You're in for it tonight. You're like, dude, I saw this last week.
yeah, man. Like, it was like just put local acts on at that point, at least, just to like champion the future of heavy music, And like I said, I think a lot of those guys like Dave Mustaine and those type of big dogs finally are seeing that they
Yeah.
need a future of heavy metal for even themselves to exist, because it's hard for them to write hits at this point. People are still coming based off of old stuff. So the more they can help other bands, the more people will find out about them even.
Fuck yeah, they will. Fuck yeah. God, Richie, this has been fucking awesome, dude.
Oh, Tom, I appreciate the hell out of it, man. Like this has been one of my funnest things of this album, getting to do a lot of interviews and talk. And it's one of my favorite things about being in music. I love chatting at the merch booth about bands and music. I love doing this about bands and music. It's just something that I've always found like my total enjoyment in being a metalhead.
This is where I find my like I'm a big like mental health proponent, and I think a lot of people they don't give enough like value to the sense of community and how that helps our mental health.
Oh
And
yeah.
like this, this my wife's like, why do you go to so many shows? It's like, because I'm fucking depressed. I need like, like I need to feel this. I, I need to feel a part of something because otherwise I think it's fucking worthless. So like these conversations, they mean the fucking world to me. I know you got shit to do, dude. So I appreciate your time. I will see you. I'm gonna try my damnedest to see you on the fucking road. Um,
What you do and what you all do is one of the most important things. Like you are taking out your time of your life and your day to spread the word for us and all these bands. And that truly is, what makes metal so great, man. Like I've talked to dudes from Puerto Rico and Canada and, everywhere in the country now. And just seeing and feeling everybody's love for music and, just doing what we do is special, man. Appreciate the hell out of it.
hell yeah, dude.
I'll see
Fucking
you.
rock and roll.
I'll
Hell
see you
yeah,
on.
dude.
Hey, have a
Have a
good one.
great day. You too,
You
brother. See
too.
ya.